This is Alex Mahoney with Coda Financial Coaching, coming to you from Guadalajara, Mexico, and your source for all things budgeting, saving, paying down debt, and ensuring your financial freedom for the long term. And today I wanted to talk about some of the concerns around tariffs. Obviously, there's been a lot of instability in the market, in people's finances as a result of tariffs, and nobody really, as much as people say they may know what's going on or what's going to happen with our current administration, frankly, whatever you think of them, nobody knows what's going to happen or what's going to be done, only that we're in for a roller coaster ride and pursuing policy that frankly hasn't been pursued in earnest, that is heavy tariffs, in about 100 years. So this is definitely a generational event. It's not clear that this is the best policy, at least from an economic point of view, but here's where we are, and we have to figure out ways to weather it regardless of what we think of the policy. But obviously these tariffs, they have implications on our budget. And if there's one silver lining to all this, it's that it's going to force us to have more discipline, to think more conscientiously about our budget. And we're getting reminders in the news every day that it's important to have a zero-based budget, not to just wing it, to be, especially with our everyday items that we need to survive, groceries, our phones, things like that, our cars, things that we need to survive and function in modern society. We need to be very conscientious of whether we are making decisions with our ego or whether we're making decisions that are truly good for our wallet and bring us peace and well-being in our lives. So here are just a few suggestions that I wanted to get into while we are going through this turbulent time, and just covering some categories that are important to budget for. The first being, of course, groceries. We all need to eat, and especially with the tariffs that have been happening with Mexico, we get a lot of products from Mexico. We should expect prices to go up. This is why it's even more important to make that weekly meal plan, that grocery list before we go into the grocery store. Know what we're going to buy. Have that mental discipline to not buy things that we really don't need. Another good idea these days is to also, if you're budgeting a certain amount for groceries, for now, I would suggest building in a 10% more cushion into your budget for whatever you have for groceries now. If it's enough, I would, unfortunately, build in another 10% on top of that for the foreseeable future, just to not have to have unanticipated stretches to that part of your budget. And of course, also a good idea is to, this is more of an opportunity to look at local farmers markets. Not only is that food healthier, but it could, relative to your super grocery chain or whatever, those prices could be more attractive and less affected by tariffs there. So that's just some ideas for you there. Another thing to be aware of is clothing and shoes. There are good apps out there where you can buy secondhand, perfectly decent apparel. Some things like Poshmark, Depop, ThredUp, those are all good options, newer options that you can explore there. And it's even more important now to really just ask yourself why you're buying a piece of clothing. Is it ego-based, or is there actually a purpose to it? And maybe if you don't want to go onto those used clothing websites that I mentioned, Poshmark, Depop, ThredUp, it may be a good idea to start building in a 20% cushion to your clothing and shoes budget if that's important to you. The next thing, electronics and appliances, of course. If you can delay upgrading in electronics or appliances, you probably should, or if you've been saving for those for an electronics or appliance and you're close, now is probably the time to pull the trigger on that. If you are unsure, you don't need a replacement in the short run, you should probably, I would suggest adding about $20 a month to your overall electronics budget, or your personal items budget, just to account for the fact that replacing and repairing electronics and appliances is going to get more expensive, at least in the short run. Another area here, auto costs. You're probably going to have to hear there's no way, if you live in a driving intensive neighborhood like most of Americans do, there's probably no way to get around it. You should add about $50 a month to your automobile budget, just because repairs are going to get more expensive, at least in the short run. So yeah, go ahead and add to that budget there as well. The other thing is home goods and furniture. Here, unless you're really dying to get a new couch or bed or something, we should probably just put off any replacements there, right? And the other strategy we can have is going on, really making use of stuff like Facebook Marketplace, other used, Goodwill, other sources of used household goods. So, I know I've brought a lot of seemingly bad news, in terms of how you're going to need to adjust your budget. Of course, that may cut into things like, eating out and, vacations, things like that. But I'd say the silver lining in all of this is that my gut tells me that this administration, they are very ego driven. They do not like to see bad numbers. They don't like to see stocks going down. They don't like to see the price of goods going up. It's very much a part of our, the administration's ego that those things don't get worse. So that's all to say, I don't think, in my personal opinion, not a prediction of the future here, but in my personal opinion, I do not think the tariffs that are being proposed in their very blanket, blunt force way are going to stand within even the next half year or so. I do think this is positioning and posturing, and I don't think we're dealing with someone who can really stomach seeing bad numbers and that hurting his legacy and ego. So we have that working in our favor. But anyways, feel free to drop in the comments what you think of my advice. If you have any other suggestions for how to budget during these uncertain and inflationary times. If you need any help or have any questions, feel free to DM or reach out as well.